Hey guys, how's it going? Kripparrian here. We got new expansion time! Just flew in from Scotland, had a pretty good time there, and we got some pretty cool stuff to talk about. Saviors of Uldum is the new expansion that's coming up. It's going to be released on August 6th, so make sure you watch our stream all day that day, because that's what we're going to be doing. In terms of the content, it's basically a mix of evil with a mix of League of Explorers. The actual League of Explorers is coming back. We don't know exactly how they're going to be coming back, if they're going to be, specific cards re-released. We've seen that with like Ragnaros and a few others a little bit throughout Hearthstone's history, so that's certainly possible. A lot of people are getting really excited for a re-release of Reno Jackson or something like that, and personally, I'm not too crazy about that because Reno Jackson, while it's really fun to make those decks, singleton decks, when the expansion first goes live, it's actually pretty crappy to play against them after like the first 2 weeks. So, we'll have to see where that lies. But overall, the hype is pretty special and pretty high this time around. They have 8 cards for you guys, and I'm going to review them for you guys, and we get an idea about what's happening in the Saviors of Uldum expansion. All right, here we go. First up, it's a quest. That's right, quests are coming back. This is the Druid Quest. It's untapped potential, so when you end a turn, if you have unspent mana, so mana left over, if you're floating mana, so if you have like 4 mana and you spend less than 4, basically it counts as 1 charge on this quest. Now remember, we haven't played a quest in a while. Quests, you can guarantee them in your opening hand. You can mulligan them away if you want, but you can guarantee them in your opening hand, which means you can rely on this effect. You can essentially make a deck around choose one effects, or you can just play a normal druid deck, which typically includes a decent few from that category. Now, how hard is it to complete this quest? It's not hard at all, but it is pretty costly. Typically, Hearthstone is a pretty well-rounded mana curve type of game these days. So if you're dropping a mana crystal there, well, it's going to add up to kind of a lot. And the passive hero power that you get, while it's pretty nice, you no longer have an active hero power. So I think this quest is actually pretty weak. Now, I typically like to do star ratings, but it's so early on. I'm sure, there's a pretty large margin of error on these. I'm going to say this card is just pretty weak. Now, there can be some really insane choose cards that come up with just skyrocket the power level of this card, but right now that is a fairly difficult to pull off while not losing requirement for the quest, and the effect can actually hurt you later because you don't have an active version of your hero power. And yes, the reward is immediate, so you don't have a choice of when you want to use this upgraded hero power. You just get it. Interesting though. Another quest. That's right, quest for every class this time around. Supreme Archaeology is a Warlock Quest, and draw 20 cards. Pretty easy, right? Yeah, it's pretty hard, but if you have things like Plot Twist, which is the shuffle your hand into your deck, draw that many cards card that we just got in the last expansion, well, it's really easy to do that quest. So it's actually a pretty powerful reward. The reward is draw a card, it costs 0. Now, it doesn't actually generate actual value or anything like that, but it makes it so your draws are very strong in the late game. And yes, if you don't play shuffle effects, it's pretty bad, because think of it this way: to draw 20 cards, well, that means you have 7 cards left in your deck? No, 6, I guess, because you have to draw your first card before you can play this. So you have 6 cards left in your deck, so you can hero power once a turn, so basically 3 of them cost 0. That's pretty difficult to really utilize, I would say. Now, there is the other aspect of, Plot Twist. There's the other aspect of Elysiana. Just, when you run out of cards, just stick some more in there. Now, I think this is quite a build around type of quest, but if you've noticed from this quest and the other quest, the Druid Quest that we just talked about, is to actually achieve, to complete these quests, it's pretty easy. just drawing 20 cards, you're just going to do that. So the way these quests seem to be designed is that it's really easy to complete them, but the reward is not necessarily all that useful. It's kind of the opposite of how we had quests before, where the reward was basically always really good, but to complete the quest, you had to do a deck build around. You have a lot more freedom with this, and I think that's pretty cool personally. I think this quest is also relatively weak, but, well, we'll see. Next up, we have Restless Mummy, and it introduces a new mechanic called Reborn. So what is Reborn? Reborn basically brings the minion back, but it has 1 health. Now, I think it's injured at 1 health, so, you can maybe get a little bit of value doing stuff that way. But regardless of what it is, it's pretty good. It's a pretty good mechanic. This is the only card that we get to see with this mechanic from the ones that they revealed to us this, first batch. And let me tell you, it's a really good one. If I was rating stars, this would be at the very least a 4-star card. The power level on this is pretty extreme. You have to consider it 2 ways. First is it has rush. So it is just removal. Very plainly. Now, it is double removal in some cases, so this is a multi-shot in the worst case, if you will. Now, sometimes your opponent will have like 0 attack minions. Sometimes you actually want to kill 2 and your opponent has 6. So it's almost always better than multi-shot, for example. And you can hit one thing for 6, so it's kind of like a fireball removal as well. It's also a really sticky minion. It also has rush, so there's actually a decent number of rush synergies in Warrior. So there's just so much going for this card. You can do 3 and 3 or 3 times 2 to 1 target. Just stick a minion on the board. Very, very good card. But how good is Tempo-ish Warrior? I don't know. Is this a good enough removal tool for a Control Warrior? I don't know. So even though it's a really high power level card, playability, I think, is actually a little questionable, but we'll see. Yeah, Plague of Death. This is kind of like the new type of card, but it's a soft new type of card that they're introducing. These are plagues. Every class is going to have 1 plague, and the plague is basically an effect that affects all of the minions on the board. So Plague of Death is a priest card. Silence and destroy all minions. That is a ridiculously powerful effect. Certainly fuels any kind of control or combo priest decks, and certainly explains why Mind Blast had to die just days ago. This is why Plague of Death would have probably pushed those already fairly decent combo priest decks maybe into levels of power that they didn't want priest players to have. So rip in peace direct damage priests. But Plague of Death is a pretty good card. Destroying and silencing is a very strong effect. We no longer have Psychic Scream, and this, in some cases, it's worse, but in most cases, I think the effect, at least, is better. Is it good enough at 9 mana? Probably, but maybe not. Maybe the X will just be too fast. 9-drop, turn 9, might be a little bit too distant. We'll see what comes with it in the next expansion, however. Then we have Questing Explorer. It's a 2-cost 2/3, so we have premium 2-drop stats. They really still, in this day and age, in 2019, they still rarely get better than that for 2 mana. Battlecry, if you have a quest, draw a card. Now, this card is so good that it actually kind of pushes you to use a quest. It's not like, well, if you're using a quest, you get to play this card. Of course you get to play this card, but this card is so good if you're playing a deck with a quest that it actually encourages you to use the quest in return. And with that in mind, this card is pretty damn powerful. Again, at minimum, 4 stars. Very powerful card. And very cool effect too. Next up, we have Puzzle Box of Yog Sauron. Cast 10 random spells, targets chosen randomly. So the good news is Yog Sauron is largely back. Because if you actually played a heavy Yog Sauron deck in the past, 10 spells is often a bit of a ceiling for Yog Sauron, because upon the Yog Sauron nerf, months after he was originally released several years ago. He stopped casting spells completely once he destroyed himself through the random spells that he played. Now, this card doesn't have that clause, so it's in many ways better, but it's a mage card, so it's in a lot of other ways a lot worse. Now, I don't think a pure RNG 10 mana cost card is really that great, but who knows? It's kind of like a 2-star territory, like it needs a lot of help, but it's possible that it could get there. We would just need to see a lot of very high mana spells come up. I mean, if you take these cards that we just reviewed here as an example, these are some really high mana cost spells. And one of those spells is Puzzle Box of Yog Sauron. Puzzle Box of Yog Sauron can trigger a new Puzzle Box of Yog Sauron. That's some real puzzling, and I very much await those highlights. Hopefully, they'll happen to me. Next up, we have Evil Totem. It's basically a 2-cost 0/2 totem that gives you lackeys in your hand at the end of turn. Now, this effect is really good in my opinion. I think this card is potentially game breaking. Now, a lot of people compare it to the existing lackey mechanics, but people quickly forget just how strong repetitive end of turn effects can be. Now, obviously, if you play this and it'll die right away, it's worse than like the Priest 2-drop. Priests have a 2-cost 2/2 death rattle. You get a lackey in your hand. So that card is obviously a decent bit better if you're only going to get one lackey. Now, the differences are there's a pretty significant sense of urgency if you play Evil Totem. Your opponent just has to kill it right away. You can lead your opponent into plays, and it makes it an incredibly strong win more card. If you're going to get 2 lackeys, I think this card is better than the other 2 mana cost lackey generators available in the game right this moment. Now, Shaman's getting that, and those lackeys, well, we know very well just how strong they are. So again, pretty dangerous, pretty high potential card, at least 3 stars, but I kind of have a good feeling about this one closing up on the 5-star rating. But I don't want to lock in my stars on these cards just yet. Lastly, Jar Dealer, new 1-cost minion. Now, these 1-cost minions, typically, Blizzard has been pretty careful to not make them too powerful, and Jar Dealer is pretty fitting. He's not too powerful, but he's not bad. Not bad 1-drops. They tend to see play. It's a 1-cost 1/1, so the stats kind of suck, but the death rattle gives you a random 1-cost minion, and you can get more Jar Dealers. You know, it's really not too bad. Again, doesn't look very impressive, but these cards have a knack of sneaking into constructed decks more often than you think. Lastly, there's like a couple pre-release bundles or whatever, but yeah, whatever. You'll see them in game. You can buy them if you think it's worth it. I'll certainly be buying all of them because I got to do the firesides. I got to learn what's up with the set, and I'd appreciate it if you guys check out those streams. And on an arena note, they actually did announce which sets will be in the next arena cycle. If you're unfamiliar, starting from last expansion, Blizzard changed Arena not to be standard. They just have a handful of sets that work with Classic and Basic set to basically create a temporary standard-ish arena. And they're pretty well themed so far, and we're getting a little bit more of that. When this expansion goes live, Arena is going to be obviously Basic Classic. We're getting League of Explorers, which is a small set with very impactful cards. Journey to Ungoro, which are the quests. We also get Kobolds and Catacombs, which are the big legendary spells. Rostakon Rumble, the Loas and stuff. And Saviors of Uldum. So we're going to get double quest Arena. Should be a lot of fun. Now remember, you can't have more than 1 quest active at any time, but that's certainly not going to stop me from trying to get multi-quest arena decks. Let me know what you think. Trailer and all the info that they released. Links are below. Hope you guys are hyped, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.